Hello everyone and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. Now, depression affects most people at some point in their life, but there are certain cases where it comes and goes for what may seem to be no reason, but it is in fact a mental health disorder that many people haven't heard of before. People with bipolar disorder often go for years without being diagnosed, and the condition can cause havoc in both their personal and work lives. So today, we'll be talking to Martine Lucas about her experiences in life that led her to being diagnosed with bipolar, and also our expert, Dr Ohemaa Nkansa Dwemena. She'll be joining us to give us the facts on bipolar and some advice. And later, I'll be speaking about what you can do to help a loved one with bipolar with Coach Chris Browne. Give us a wave, Chris. But first, we have the news with Helena Shard. So hello, Helena.
Hi, Chrissy.
Nice to see you, and you're looking beautiful, by the way. I love that jacket.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today's very interesting.
Yes.
I found looking into bipolar amazing. And most celebrities, and I say most, have bipolar, which I find really extraordinary. I mean, not everybody, but people that you wouldn't believe. And at times of, because obviously there's two parts to it, which is the depression and mania, because it used to be called manic depression, didn't it? And normally when there's mania going on, it can in fact be creative. So, you know, when people are talking, they're using sort of very colourful words. It's a time where people can write scripts, and it's completely mad and lots going on, but it's amazing. I mean, I don't suffer from it, but I have friends that have it. Yeah. And it's
do you notice the changes in them? Yeah,
I do.
What is it that you notice about them?
I notice in a manic period that it's manic. You know, it's sort of almost the same as a word. So they're very busy, a little bit haphazard, not 100% in control. You know, still carrying on, still working, but you can see a difference. Definitely not a calm. So I always wonder what it must be like to be inside that, because obviously if you've got bipolar and it's diagnosed, you will know there's different stages that you're going through. I can imagine how confusing it must be for a person that doesn't know they have it, and then they have all these different sort of things.
Extreme highs or
and if
extreme
you've got
lows.
it quite badly, there's sometimes people don't have very many normal days, so it must be such an imbalance. Anyway, so that was, I just found crazy just thinking about it. And just reading about different things, and even George III, that everyone knows as Mad King George III. And he was given, he was now when they're looking into it. Lucy Wolseley,
I see the symptoms and everything.
The symptoms very much so. And everyone was saying how mad he was, but actually he was a really good
Why
king.
were they saying, what kind of stuff did he used to do or say? That
he used to go off on a tangent and just be talking for England non-stop, till the point that he'd almost collapse. And then he used to have his depression, where he used to take himself off to Kew Gardens and go away at months at a time. But he was really missed by the court and all his fellow people around him, because in fact in his normal mind he was quite stabilising to everyone. But can you imagine
what he went through, the poor thing? Because back then, obviously, they didn't know. You get judged by everyone. You don't have the support. You don't know what's wrong with you or what's going on. There's no like medication or anything, or you wouldn't even talk to anyone about it because no one would understand anyway.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think
so he did so well considering what he was going through.
And also Vivian Leigh back again was another actress, very famous actress. And she suffered from it as well. They found out years later, and her relationship broke down. I mean, obviously she was a famous actress, but she felt very unhappy a lot of the time. And it's not like now where you have somebody in between being famous and you have people looking after you. It was just sort of us, you know, her and nobody. So really interesting.
When I knew a lady that with bipolar, such a lovely person, but she was very torn because if she wasn't taking her medication, for example, she used to kind of be, how can I say, she was basically, I mean, there was a time where she just would lay on the floor, or she stripped herself naked one day, and she did all these kind of things.
I know something.
And then, but she was the sweetest, loveliest lady, and there were other times that she was so sort of happy and really such a lovely person in general to be around. And she was always in this thing, she didn't like taking the medication because it used to make her feel, she said it made her feel worse and depressed and everything. But at the same time, it's like when she didn't, that's what used to happen. And it's like I felt really bad for her because
Yeah.
Either way, she wasn't happy.
100% happy.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to hear, the story of Martine afterwards, because she's actually managed something remarkable, which we'll be finding out. Yeah,
that would be good to find out. Gosh,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be talking about old people, older generation now, but Vincent van Gogh again. Not old people. Vincent van Gogh.
You mean dead people?
Gosh, yeah. Who he was. Poor thing. I mean, he didn't really know how well he did, because it's the same thing. He died and obviously became famous with his painting, but he chopped his ear off and various things. But I think that was wasn't bipolar, but he had sort of mad outbreaks, etc., and was diagnosed with that. But again, he didn't realise. Nobody realised until years and years later. Yeah. But there are just so many people. I mean, Catherine Zeta-Jones is doing a huge. I mean, she's great now because she speaks out to try and normalise bipolar and inform people about it. Because she, it was brought on by the cancer diagnosis of her husband, Michael Douglas, and that episode of stress led to bipolar. And so she actually took herself to a mental place to help her, and she recuperated for a while and told everyone. But she suffers from, I think with the mania side, it's category 2, which apparently is not as manic as 1. But still, I mean, you would never have known. Again, a very successful actress, has done incredibly well, and just the stress of her husband and the cancer just brought it on. Although she'd suffered from depression beforehand. Yeah, so beforehand, slightly, but not bipolar. So great. Robin Williams, as everyone knows, very sad again, and he felt very alone at that time, and obviously is the most, still is, just was so loved, and it's just such a shame. I think he also
that's
had
the thing,
because
when I was reading about it as well, you do get those sort of, or people with bipolar get those episodes where they do feel suicidal, but it's not constant sometimes. And that's the sad thing. It's like if the person's not getting the right help or the right treatment, something could happen in those low periods. So it's really, really important that someone is getting seen to and helped in some way.
So that's really sad. Jim Carrey, I mean, we've discussed Jim Carrey previously with his depression, but again, he has bipolar.
I didn't know that.
Nor did I. You just don't. When you look into it, the list is endless. And when he split up from his girlfriend, and he literally spent all night tweeting, like completely, because that's when he said, I was actually going through my mania part of my depression.
Oh, wow. I really didn't know that about him.
So
who else? Well,
loads. But just to say that he actually used to take medication, but he now self-medicates, and his faith sort of gets him through it. So that's quite interesting, because there's different things. Ben Stiller, again a famous actor.
I didn't know that either.
And that's in the family as well, his parents. But he's known to be he gets very aggressive and very angry. I think that's one side effect, I believe, the irritation and quick fuse.
Well, we've got our expert as well. She'll be telling us some of the symptoms and things that can happen.
Winston Churchill, I mean, he went on to help win World War II, and it was in the family completely. And he used to call his depression his black dog, so he had a name for it. But he did incredibly well. His daughter had it too.
It just goes to show that you can be going through some really serious problems, but still achieve so much.
Amazing.
I think that takes remarkable strength.
Doesn't it? Unfortunately, his daughter had it and committed suicide, so that's sad, but it was in the family. But amazing people. So Marriott Hartley, Virginia Woolf, we said, Vincent van Gogh, Sinead O'Connor. I'd always wondered why she disappeared, because in the 80s she was quite a big...
she was.
And then she sort of became quite a recluse, but she developed bipolar. I keep wanting to say manic depression, but that's an old term. She developed it quite badly, and then years and years later she spoke to Oprah Winfrey, as you do, and told everyone about about her story. I didn't know that at all.
Is that why she went off the scene?
Yeah, purely because of that.
Wow.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, very, very famous actor.
Oh, really?
He has, and he's been married 4 times. His relationships kept breaking down, and in the end, I don't quite understand, but there's something he was prescribed, which is almost like a salt that he took, and obviously it was the medication he needed, and all of a sudden, after a few weeks, everything became quite calm. So his life was chaotic, and he couldn't see properly, he was angry, and it was just this calm. So he was pleased to, be able to keep his condition at bay.
Oh, wow, it's really interesting, Helena.
Interesting.
Thank you for those stories.
There's loads and loads.
Just shout a few names out to us. You don't have to go into it, just before we go to a break, because I think we need to.
I would have to go all the way down to the bottom. Richard Dreyfuss. Actually, I'm not 100%. Robbie Williams. I mean, he's obviously not Robbie, the singer. Again, he suffers from it and has talked about Roseanne Barr, Stephen Fry. Obviously, he's huge, but he's quite happy now.
And still achieving lots. That just goes to show, doesn't it?
You can achieve loads with it.
Okay.
You can.
Helena, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next time on the show. Thank you. All right, guys, so don't go away, because after the break, I'll be talking to Martine Lucas about her journey with bipolar and also watching a video about some common symptoms.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to today's program, where we are speaking all about bipolar disorder and how it should not limit you from living your life to the full. Now, before we speak to Martine Lucas and hear her story, let's take a look at this video about some common symptoms.
How to recognize the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Also known as manic depression, bipolar disorder is a mental illness that can be controlled with medication. Learn to spot this condition's hallmark behaviors. You will need close observation and intervention. Step 1. Look for mood swings, either abnormally elated or excessively angry or sad and hopeless. Onset may be gradual or dramatic, and behavior can be unpredictable. The key is that these mood shifts interfere with a person's life and ability to function. Bipolar disorder can show up as early as childhood, although it more commonly develops in late adolescence or adulthood. Step 2. Recognize a manic stage. Symptoms include a change in mood that may include euphoria, increased energy, a decreased need for sleep, restlessness, impulsiveness, and risky behavior like spending sprees and drug and alcohol abuse. Step 3. Recognize a depressive phase, which can manifest as sadness, hopelessness, insomnia or an excessive need for sleep, changes in appetite, and thoughts of death or suicide. Step 4. Know the 3 main types of the disorder. Bipolar 1 involves manic episodes with or without a depressive phase. Bipolar 2, which involves depression and at least one hypomanic episode, which is similar to mania but is less severe. And bipolar NOS, standing for not otherwise specified, in which a person's symptoms don't neatly fit into either category. People with less intense mood swings may have a condition called cyclothymia. Step 5. Watch for psychotic behavior. If a BD sufferer sees or hears things that aren't there, or suffers from delusions, they are showing signs of psychosis and should not be left alone. Seek treatment immediately. Step 6. See a mental health professional if you are displaying any signs of bipolar disorder, and encourage anyone you know with these symptoms to do the same. Bipolar disorder can be controlled with medication and tends to get worse if it's left untreated.
Okay, so that was a very informative video, but now let's talk to someone who knows what it feels like to have bipolar, and that's Martine Lucas. Hello, Martine.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, you're very bright and bubbly and very positive person, but
Yes.
you have been through quite a hard time, haven't you?
I have indeed.
Can you tell us when it all started for you?
Okay, so depression. About 13, my mood just changed. I felt very, very different. I didn't know how to deal with how I was feeling. My mum was noticing. And
what were you feeling?
Low, didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to socialise, didn't want to look in the mirror.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
But before that, you'd been sort of a happy child, like, would you say?
I think, right, I felt a bit different, I think, before that. But I think when my hormones kicked in, it triggered.
Right.
It was a whole different ball game.
Okay.
And I didn't understand. And my mum would be asking me, you know, what's wrong? And there wasn't anything I could pinpoint. I just felt so low. And wanted to hide away all the time.
Yeah.
Such a difficult time, very confusing.
Must have been hard on your mum as well.
Bless her.
Because any parents seeing their child sort of all of a sudden...
Yeah, she didn't know. She kept asking me, and she was thinking, at one point thinking if I'm pregnant or there was something I was hiding, because she just didn't know, and she kept asking, and I couldn't give the answer because I didn't know. I was just feeling so low.
So how long were you feeling depressed like this for?
It was pretty much all the time. The only time that I didn't really understand, because this is another thing about bipolar, is I wasn't really aware of my moods as such. When I was in it, I was in it. I would go outside and I learned to put a mask on. So people at school wouldn't necessarily see it. It would be when I'd be at home. So I'd put this mask on.
Pretend you were happy, pretend you were confident.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so not, and I was shy, and then I'd go home and hide. You know, my brother once said to me, "You're always happy when you're outside, and you come home and you're miserable." And I was like, really? You know, I didn't really see it like that. Then I understood years later that it was a mask I was putting on to cope with outside. I didn't want to draw attention to it. If I was in a mood, people would ask you, what's wrong? I didn't want that. So let's put on a mask.
You just kind of wanted to feel normal even to when you're around your friends.
Especially at that young age.
Not to be treated differently, because if you told them, oh, I'm depressed, who's going to want to hang around someone that's depressed? That's all the kind of things that you kind of think of when you are feeling low.
Yeah.
So how did it then start affecting you in other areas of your life?
Well, okay, so when I started to feel low, it started to get very serious. My mum was worried, so we went to the doctor, and he put me on the pill, contraceptive pill, because apparently that helps with. And I think it did for a while. Temporarily it helped. And then I was put on antidepressants, and temporarily they'd help. But basically, I was just going more and more in my shell, and I couldn't cope. I just couldn't cope, and I was really, really confused. Again, questioning what's going on. You know, there's something very wrong with me, but not knowing there was a diagnosis to come. Just thinking I was maybe a freak, or you know, there's something wrong with me.
Did you have these high and low, extreme highs and extreme lows?
At that point, I didn't. It was later that come, and I'm not sure about whether this is true, but someone did mention, it was mentioned to me at some point when I was seeing doctors and that it might have been that I was on antidepressants for so long, having it, that might have lifted and triggered that. I don't know how much of that is true. It doesn't really matter, but it was triggered at some point. And how that manifested, the mania was spending. Talking a lot, not being able to concentrate, irritability, you know, it was, and again, like I said, it's very confusing. I didn't know when I was in these moods. People would maybe point it out. My mum was getting to see things, you know.
So for you, was it just kind of normal for you to,
once I was in it, I was in it. I couldn't, I wasn't measuring it. I wasn't aware, you know, but my mum tended to be, or I'd be doing that a lot, and that's where the irritability come in. But my mum didn't know again at that time, but she could just see, oh, you're behaving this way at the moment, or you're behaving that way. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Martine, how did it affect relationships for you?
So, because I didn't understand me, I couldn't understand relationships. So, and I was picking wrong people. I mean, how I started to cope with it was or in my own way, not consciously, but I started to drink. So that would affect my relationship. So that's where drink and drugs come in. Because what I found was that I couldn't manage my moods, okay? I couldn't. But when I knew, when I had a drink or a drug, I was guaranteed I was going to feel different. Okay. That was the only guarantee.
Temporarily.
Yeah. But I knew that there was, otherwise, on that, I wouldn't know if I was going to feel good, bad, low, or anything. I had no idea. Right. So, yeah. So that affected, obviously, relationships with people. When you say you picked the wrong guys, was it sort of the same, was it like a pattern that was happening there? I think it was, yes, there was definitely a pattern, but I think it was just the way I was living, my lifestyle, drinking, drugs. So I was going to be meeting those sort of people. And I didn't have a high opinion of myself. I'm thinking there's something wrong with me, I'm a bit of a freak. My mother couldn't understand me, bless her, so that made me feel again, you know, people don't get me, I don't get myself. So of course I'm not having a high opinion of me, so I'm picking guys to fit that mould. You know? But that must have also affected you, sort of the bad experiences that you had in relationships must have also added to the strain and stress of what you were going through. Of course, it's a vicious circle, yeah, absolutely. And it took me to places where I was on the floor, completely on the floor, because it wasn't just the illness, but then it was the consequences of the drinking and the drugs, my lifestyle, not liking who I was. Did you ever consider suicide? Yes, and I attempted suicide and ended up in hospital twice. Wow. Yeah, and once damaged my liver, so I had to stay in. But I was trying to hide what had happened because I didn't want my mum to know, you know, what had happened, you know, that I'd tried to take my life. And but the doctors, you know, overrode that actually, because even though I was 18 at that time, they felt it was really important for my mum to know, and so they broke it to her and fro. It was just horrendous,
Must
absolutely
have been.
horrendous. Yeah, but my liver repaired itself, you know, luckily enough. But yeah, it was tragic. I didn't want to live because I didn't get it. I just didn't get living.
It's a scary thing to go through, isn't it? When you don't know what's going on, and when all these things are happening to you, and then you don't want to worry your mum as well, so you feel like you can't really talk to her. It's such a scary place to be.
Yeah, and I couldn't speak to her because I didn't know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
All
So
I
did
knew
you ever
was I was
confide
depressed.
in a friend or anyone though, or someone that you trusted?
Because I think I didn't get it, so I didn't know what I was saying to other people. I was just trying to cope, and that was drink and drugs, but also put a smile on.
Yeah.
Party girl, that fitted. I'd find an identity, and that identity was party girl. People liked to be around me because once I'd had a drink, the inhibitions went, and then I could be somebody. Otherwise, I wasn't. I was wanting to hide away.
Okay.
So it was, so that triggered it because I'm doing two different things.
Wow, really stressful. Martine, you're going to stay with us because after the break we'll also be joined by a psychologist expert who's going to be commenting on your story. Okay. But also you're going to be telling us the good news about when you were diagnosed and how you managed to turn things around, which I think is really remarkable. So do join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to today's programme, and if you've just joined us, we are talking about bipolar disorder, and we've been hearing the story of Martine here, and she's been telling us all about the downs that she went through, but she will be talking to us about how she managed to turn her life around. We also have our expert, Dr Ohemaa Nkansa Dwemena, and she's going to be giving us the facts and some advice as well. But first, let's take a look at this video with Hannah Richards making something super healthy for breakfast, because as you know, eating good food can make a lot of difference to our mental well-being.
Hello and welcome to the MTS Kitchen. My name's Hannah, and today I'm going to show you how to make a really quick, simple and easy breakfast for some brain food. So, we're just going to take 2 avocados, and avocados are your easiest form of fat to get into the body because they're so versatile. You can put them in a salad, you can put them in a sandwich, you can eat them on their own. Inside your avocado pear, you've got your big stone, and all you're going to do is take him out. And it doesn't matter if you get some of the avocado as well, because we need to create a little hole for our baked egg that we're going to put in there. People often forget that you can also bake eggs as well. So that's what we're going to do today. So once you've got your 2 avocados scooped out, put them into your baking tray, and then take eggs. Now, if you see here, these white eggs are duck eggs, and these brown eggs are hen eggs. There's really not a lot of difference other than it's just a bit of variation in your diet. There's a lot of egg white in the eggs, and they can overflow the avocado. So let's just crack it into a little dish there. And then the main thing we want is this beautiful yolk. So I'm then going to spoon that yolk in. There we go. Then I've got room to just add some egg white. So they're going to go into the oven now for about 20 minutes on about 180, depending on how efficient your oven is. But I check them at about 10-15 minutes just to make sure. Then give them a little longer and pull them out. Then let them rest for about 5 minutes, and we're just going to chop some herbs. You could chop some chives on top, and they're ready to serve. Slightly different combination, baked eggs and avocado.
We now have some very hungry ladies in the studio. Okay, so joining me on the sofa we have Dr Ohemaa Nkansa Dwemena. Hello.
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you in person.
Yes,
Because it
was
a
Skype.
Yeah, we did the Skype thing. Now we've got you here.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to have you here. So what did you think of Martine's story so far?
Well, you know, it's quite interesting what you're talking about with regards to not knowing what was going on, which is not uncommon for a lot of people who have not been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and yet are experiencing the symptoms. A real sense of feeling quite confused, feeling quite lost, wanting to hide away because you don't quite understand what's going on, yet you don't want other people to know about it. It can be quite an isolating diagnosis to have as well, or even when it's not diagnosed. So it's always really important, say to people, that if you can get diagnosed earlier, that's much better, because it helps to be able to have a treatment plan in place, one that's a long-term view, one that can help, because when you're diagnosed later on, I mean, it can, not so much that it's not difficult to treat, but it can become a bit trickier because you know you've had to sit with the symptoms for so long and find ways to cope, like Martine was talking about, alcohol, drugs. Some people turn to other things. Eating, engaging in really reckless behavior, losing a lot of relationships. So early diagnosis is really important, having a support system in place. And the other thing I always say is really important is that when somebody is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it's important that their family members and whoever's around them also has an understanding of the symptoms as well, so they're able to support and also be aware of when this individual might slip into a manic episode or a depressive episode, because sometimes they won't necessarily be quite aware that that is happening. When you have other people sometimes looking out for you, that can be also helpful to getting you the support that you might need at that time.
Now, is it true that it can be brought on by stress, or is it something that the person's born with?
No, it can be brought on by stress. I mean, research has shown that there's not a single proven cause for bipolar disorder. Research does show that there's a genetic component to it. There's also a neuropsychological aspect, and that research shows that there's possibly abnormalities in certain nerves in the brain functioning, or communication in certain nerves in the brain. But also, people who do go on to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, research has also shown that they're more vulnerable to stresses, or more sensitive to sense and emotional difficulties. And so that, in combination with environmental stresses, can trigger symptoms of bipolar disorder. So you can have individuals, and that's why sometimes they emerge later on in life, because actually you can have something happen that actually triggers particular symptoms, as with any medical condition actually, that things can lay dormant for a while and change, or huge transition or loss, or something quite stressful happens, and all those symptoms tend to emerge.
Now, it's important obviously for us to speak about the fact that you can have a life, because like we were talking earlier, people think that once they get diagnosed with something, either depression or anything actually, that's it, life's over, I might as well give up. But that's so not true, because obviously you were diagnosed eventually, so it kind of made things easier for you to kind of understand.
Yes.
But then you also went on to come off your medication and live without medication. Although we're not obviously, you know, telling anyone to come off the medication. You need to speak to your doctors about that. But in your case, you wanted to be medication free and learn how to manage on your own. Can you tell us what you're doing today? Because I think it's quite remarkable.
Okay, well, I'm a qualified counsellor and I'm a life coach, and I help women that want to turn their life around from whatever that's going on. I think the point was what you said earlier. I think it's really, really important to say that when you get a diagnosis, sometimes that can become your identity. Okay, so I'm bipolar, or I've got depression, and then it starts to limit you. Well, that doesn't have to be the case. And for me, it was about saying, okay, I want to live now, and if I'm going to live, I'm going to give it my best shot. And so I got busy and I found out about bipolar, but also I didn't think about I'm living with it necessarily. I have a healthy respect for it, but it was then about taking care of me and more about just watching what I do. And I got sober, and I'm 7 years sober, and then I decided, spoke to my psychiatrist and said, I want to go drug-free because I really want to live. And I'd learnt about the brain that if you don't take medication and you go through times like that, you end up developing new neuro pathways so that you become stronger. And my psychiatrist supported me, and I got clean and sober, and then I qualified.
How does it feel being a coach now, after everything you've been through?
It's so exciting because I have faith in people, whatever they've come through, because if I've been there and I've met so many amazing people that have turned their lives around, and I say, you can do it, it doesn't matter. don't be limited by it. So I get excited. I absolutely love what I do.
Brilliant. I can see you're so chirpy.
Did you see me lift when I took away? Yeah, I love it.
Any sort of final words on some advice for people with bipolar who've just been diagnosed and think like, you know, their world has ended?
Well, I think that's a really important point that Martine makes, is that, you know, with this particular diagnosis, and I think with any mental health diagnosis, getting the right support and treatment is really important, but it's not a death sentence in any way. You can go on to live very full, fulfilling lives. As you were saying to Helena earlier on, there are so many people who are living with it who've gone on to do magnificent things. But it really is important to have the right support in place. It's really important to, like I said, get a diagnosis, because the other thing about diagnosing bipolar is that it can take some time to get the correct diagnosis for bipolar disorder.
Types.
There are different types. And if it's not diagnosed properly, what can also happen, sometimes people will show symptoms of depression, and the depression will be treated. And actually, sometimes if you only have the depression treated with antidepressants, for instance, that can actually trigger a manic episode.
Oh, right, okay.
Exactly.
Which is really, really serious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the future for you? What have you got your eyes on? Because I know you're not stopping here. You've got
No,
your eyes on.
well, yeah, starting my new business and coaching women, focusing on coaching women to be able to turn their lives around. And so it's martinelucascoaching.com. I've got my website, and looking forward to helping people that want to move forward and not be limited by a diagnosis.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ohemaa, thank you so much for the great advice that you've given to us, and we'll see you again. So guys, don't go away, because after the break, I'll be discussing with Coach Chris Browne how to help a loved one with bipolar, so don't go away.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to today's program, where we've been speaking about bipolar. So now I'm going to be discussing some tips on how to help a loved one who has bipolar, or actually any mental health condition such as depression and other stuff. And here's Coach Chris Browne.
Hi, Chrissy.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very interesting topic. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah,
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very well. Yeah,
Great.
I'm really enjoying the show today. I've learned a lot.
Oh, I've learned so much.
That's why I love doing this show, because I learned as well.
Yeah, could you imagine all those people out there as well, how much it's going to help them? It's amazing.
Exactly.
Listen.
So let's go through some points now about how to help a loved one who is going through an issue. And the first one is to understand them. So I can't remember who mentioned it, but it is important for a family member to get as much information as possible about what their loved one is going through, because then you can recognise symptoms, you can know how best to help them, and you won't be scared or confused, because even though it's a difficult time to go through as a family member, but at least you understand what's going on. It's not like, oh my God, what's going on here? I can't take this. Yeah,
it empowers you to learn information about it and be able to help the person as well. The other thing is find out information about it. I was finding out about the whole chemistry imbalance that happens along with that and what we need. So there's quite a lot to research.
Yeah, you can help much better, can't you, with that? Okay, the second point is to make sure you listen. Now, pay attention to what your loved one has to say, and don't assume that you know what the person is going through. So even you might have done all your research and read up about it, but still, if they want to talk about it, make sure you do have that ear to, to listen to them when they need to talk. And also, don't assume that everything that they go through, every emotion that they have, is because of this mental health condition. I can liken it, for example, to when us females are having a bad day, and then a man will come and say, "Oh, it's her hormones." It's really annoying, and sometimes we just want to talk. It's nothing to do with our hormones. So I'm going off the topic a bit, but it's nothing to do with our hormones. It's just we're going through something, and we just like to talk about it. But so in the same way, you can relate it to this. Don't assume that anything that the person says or is going through, it's because of bipolar, it's because of this. You don't know it is. Just still listen to them.
I noticed you looked at me directly as the guy, instead of,
And all the camera people that are here,
The thing about it is true, being better informed at the end of the day and understanding, having somebody to actually speak to in any situation is going to make that difference for that individual, It
will,
very much so.
Number 3 is to always offer your help. So sometimes there are bad periods in a person's life where even like the simple tasks, maybe for me and you, would be a big deal to them. So it's always good to offer your help in those things, even if it's to, go around and do the ironing or doing some housework for the person, something that will
make that
mean
difference.
a lot.
Yeah, and talking about help as well, there's this organisation which is called SURE, and they help people with bipolar who need to get into employment and how to actually get through it in this sort of area as well. I think it'd be good to actually say, well, look, this is an area that we need to actually work on as well, because sometimes you get a situation, do I tell my employer or do I not tell them, you know? And they gear people through it. It's really interesting.
That's a very interesting point, Chris. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, number 4 is to encourage them. Now, what do I mean by this? Encourage them to follow their doctor's instructions and go for their checkups. And also there's other stuff like, you know, making sure they're looking after their health, like eating properly, as we saw with Hannah's video earlier, eating well, exercising, because that all does help the person's healing and well-being.
It makes all the difference. The training, the exercising, the eating right as well, and the right foods. The right foods to eat, which will make a difference as well.
Avocados are great for the brain as well.
Oh yeah, I love avocados.
I'm so going to have an avocado when I go home. I'm telling you, I've got a craving. Okay, number 5 is to do things together. So people who are depressed, they kind of tend to hide away from everyone. You know, in some periods. Others, they'll go out and party, but there's many that will hide away. So make sure you encourage your friend or your loved one to get out and do things that they enjoy. You know, if you know they like going for walks in the park or going out for dinner, even if they themselves don't feel like doing it, but kind of say, okay, I'll take you out, let's go for a walk. You kind of have to talk around things sometimes.
Because there's that other side as well. Does somebody actually want to be helped at that time as well? So it's tippy-toeing around it, getting there, understanding the person. Including.
Definitely. Okay. Number 6 is make a plan. Now, depending on what the condition is, for example, bipolar can be unpredictable. So you need to know what to do if things do get out of hand. And, you know, that's where the professionals will come in, the experts, and they'll be able to explain to you. So it's always better to have at least have that understanding of knowing what to do in an emergency for the person with the condition and for the family member, because it makes you kind of feel more comfortable. At least you've got a plan. And you love planning, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, always plan.
You always talk about planning when you're coaching.
You've got a plan, and not only that, we plan for all situations, emergency, fires, all things like that. This is a situation that you do need to plan for, so you know what to do, because could you imagine something kicks off and you lose it too? None
not good.
Better for the other, are they? So work a plan out. It's important.
Okay, and number 7, also you need to express yourself. So, you know, your loved one's behaviour may actually have a big effect on you too, and you have the right to talk about it. You don't have to say, oh, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to upset this person even more. You don't need to wrap them up in cotton wool, and sometimes that alone makes them feel worse. And they start to feel guilty. So if you need to say something, if you need to talk about how you're feeling as well, don't hide just because the person's going through something, because they will respect you more and feel better if you
keep it real.
I know you're trying to protect someone when you do that, but
you are. But at the end of the day, if you're keeping it real with somebody, you build up more of a trust in being sincere and real about it. You can actually talk to this person.
Very good
makes
point,
all the
Chris.
difference.
Definitely. And also for yourself, ask for help if needed. So, you know, your support can help someone to recover, but you probably won't be able to do this alone, and you can't be there like 24/7 for the person sometimes. It's a lot of mental stress, I would say. So, you know, don't feel any way to ask other family members to help or other friends to help. But then it's funny, because we're talking about now in this period, you think about before when people didn't really know about it before they actually got a name. And we're talking about, 1950s, 80s, where people actually understood what is bipolar and it got a name. Now, it's a big difference. So there's a lot of help out there at the end of the day. There is. And the last point I wanted to talk about was to take care of you. So don't forget about your needs and your well-being. So I know, especially women, Chris, we have this natural tendency to want to look after everyone and make sure they're okay. And then there could be, like, I know men do as well, but I think it's more
women do it more in that sense. I agree with you.
We do. We kind of give everything to that person. We tend to sort of forget about ourselves, but then you need to keep strong and healthy for yourself too. So when you need a break, take a break. You know, if you need to go away somewhere, you can't sort of stop your life as well, just to take care of someone. I know it's hard, but it will do you both good if you do have that me time, if you are looking after yourself as well, not putting all your focus on the other person. Individual.
And that helps if you've got a network around you, that support to be able to have that respite, take that time at the same time.
And one thing obviously that we wanted to leave our viewers with, Chris, is that, you know, even if you are going through a problem, it doesn't mean your life is over. You can still achieve so much, and I think that's the key to the show today. You know, related to anything you're going through, whether it be bipolar or depression, anything at all.
Any situation, and as you see from a guest that I actually had as well, the achievements after and getting through it and being able to help somebody else who's going through this as well. Every situation seems dark at the time when you're going through it, but that's a short term. long term, there's always a bright end to it.
Okay. Chris, before we go, tell us about your coaching business as well.
Right, okay. It's Coach Chris Browne, right? Now, coachchrisbrowne.com. Let's go back. I always get a .com off at the same time, right? We've got to get the .com in there. And what we've been doing as well, I work for many organisations, and we help people actually hit their targets and their goals. We've got situations. Obviously, I do a lot with employment as well, getting people to go through that psychologically, where they need to get to hit their goals. Yeah. It could be their family life, their health, their job, and, well, career overall is the main thing. Being able to hit your targets and goals.
Do you come a lot across people that kind of feel a bit low about stuff? And
very much.
And you see them also turning their lives around.
Do you know the great thing about it is my area is specifically in the employment side as well. And I've seen people from total zero to hero. Yeah. And that feels so good. That in itself, and seeing somebody turn around, you know. Yeah. If you want to find out more about it as well, I've got this area where we're talking about stress busting as well, which is really major when we're talking about bipolar and all that as well. Check out that website, coachchrisbrowne.com.
Okay, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you. All right, guys, so there you have it. You can see that you can achieve anything when you put your mind to it, and don't give yourself like a death sentence just because you are going through a problem, because you can so turn things around. So if you want more information about our guest today, you can visit the website chrissybshow.tv, and then if you want to get in touch with me, you can also fill in the form that's on that website and we'll get back to you. And also I have my own personal website, which is mylifeafterdepression.com. If you want to check out my story and how I got help, you can check out that website too. So see you again next time. Bye bye for now.